A very warm welcome, everybody, and it's great to have you at the presentation by the Department of Mechanical Engineering. My name is Professor Brandon Collier-Reed, and helping me behind the scenes together is our departmental manager, Carmelita Yonka. So thanks to her for managing the chat this afternoon. It's quite disconcerting to be sort of behind a camera like this and not be able to see all of you out there in the audience. But I hope that today will give you an opportunity to see a little bit about what we offer you and why it is that you want to come and join our department, and also give you a sense of some of the other bits and pieces that you might have questions of in your mind. So during this presentation, if there are questions that you have, please just feel free to add them into the chat. And then at the end of the presentation, we'll be able to work through them together. And just remember, we won't probably have time to be able to go through all your questions, but we will be putting together a frequently asked questions list at the end that will be distributed and made available for all of you. All right. What I'd like to do first is to click onto my first slide and give you a sense of what our department is all about. Now, firstly, many of you were at the Dean's presentation a little bit earlier, and maybe I should just start by saying we're very pleased to have Prof Alison Lewis as our Dean. She's done amazing things for our faculty, and I'm sure that while you were listening to her and hearing about what the faculty had planned for next year, I'm sure you'll agree, in fact, that we're in a really good place as we move from now into 2021 onwards. In our department, we have two programs that we offer: mechanical engineering and mechanical and mechatronics engineering. And if the questions in the chat of the Dean's presentation were anything to go by, there are a number of you who are interested in the difference between the mechanical and mechatronics engineering and the mechatronics engineering offered by electrical engineering. And one of my very last slides, I've actually got a slide up that described that difference quite clearly. But before we get there, let's take a little trip down through our department to give you a sense of sort of who's who in the zoo and why we are as good as what we do. I've got two pictures of my first year students. That's in diagonal top right and bottom left. In the bottom left, you've got some first year students who are participating in a competition. There's a design build test competition where they built some racing cars, and that's the day when they're racing them. On the top right, you've got some students who are in our workshop going through a practical at that particular time. And of course, where you all want to be at the bottom right is on graduation day. I'll just stop for a moment at this stage just to say it doesn't matter where you do your engineering degree, whether it's at UCT or Stellenbosch, at WITS, at UP, at Northwest, you're going to get a good engineering education, particularly because all our qualifications are accredited by the Engineering Council of South Africa. So they are basic levels that are there. So you're going to get a good education. But why then come to UCT? Why come to the Department of Mechanical Engineering? It's because who we are, and it's how we work with you that sets us apart from the rest of the people, the rest of the departments that you could join. And over the next few slides, I'm hoping that I'll be able to demonstrate to you exactly why it is that we are this really special place that you can come and do your qualification with us. As I move through these slides, I just want you to think back to what the Dean said. She spoke about versatility, and in that particular slide, she spoke about rockets, mobile phones, and hip replacements. Now, I'll just have you know that we have two of those. We've got rockets and hip replacements. So on the slides that are coming, you'll see rockets and hip replacements, and just think back to what she was talking about, versatility. Also she spoke about research-led teaching. And on the next slides, I'll talk a little bit about the department, a little bit about what we do, but also about the people who do those things and the real expertise that we have that will be in the classroom with you, educating you as you study towards either mechanical engineering or MMT, as we call it. So on this first slide, again, I've got a bunch of pictures, and of course, you have all applied to this department, so some of the pictures that are on the screen over here are some of the types of things that might interest you. For example, we've got Professor Chris van Klemperer, who works in the area of composites, and the body of this car that you can see on the right, that's a composite material, just like we've got Saadat Parker, also works in composites. We've got composite bicycle frames. For those of you that might be interested in engines, and some of you who might know engines, just have a look on the bottom left-hand side. You'll see that there's a two-stroke diesel engine there, but just notice the person. I've got a person circled in blue. Notice how small they are in comparison to the engine itself. So, of course, you can work from very small nanoscale, nano manufacturing, all the way up to this massive scale in this department. I just want to make it clear at this stage that sometimes mechanical engineering or MMT as well gets has a reputation out there of just being about engines and cars. And of course, I mean, you're in the audience, you know that that's not the case. And over the next few slides, you'll definitely see that, you know, as a person who graduates from our department, you really got a very, very broad area that you can go and work in. And I'm sure one of the questions that'll come up later is about, you know, where you could work as an engineer from our department. We've got some people who are quite involved in biomedical engineering in our department. We've got Malaboch and Guepe, as well as George Vikatos. In fact, Associate Professor George Vikatos has won Inventor of the Year a few years ago for some of the biomedical implants that he's developed. In fact, he's even developed a way of being able to, for birth defects where you need to grow the jawbone around. He's got some amazing inventions which he's developed while he's been with us. And in fact, if I had to ask many of you out in the audience at the moment to sort of, if you're really keen on something like biomedical engineering, I'm sure a whole bunch of you would put up your hands. It's a very, very common view of what sort of mechanical engineering can lead to. Same with aeronautical engineering. If I have to ask you sort of who's keen on aeronautical engineering, again, a whole bunch of people would probably put their hands up. And you might, in fact, then start asking questions like, you know, if I want to do aeronautical engineering, why would I come to UCT to do, say, mechanical engineering? Why not go and study aeronautical engineering? Well, hold that thought for just a moment. I'll come back to it on the next slide. If you are interested in something like aeronautical engineering or fluid flow or fluid dynamics, we have a really robust industrial computational fluid dynamics team research group. And in fact, Professor Arno Milan, who leads that group, is doing some quite specific and cutting edge work with Airbus on looking at what's happening at fuel when it's in the wings and as the aircraft moves around. And just as an aside, on the left-hand side of the slide here, you've got another team of postgraduate students who have just recently beat the world altitude record for a water rocket by 33%. They've now got a height of 830 meters. We've got all sorts of other things that involved in our department. We've got people involved with fluid dynamics. We've got people involved with heat transfer. We've got the BISRU, the Blast Impact Survivability Research Unit. It doesn't roll off the tongue as easily as it should. Who are looking at impact, for example, the crumple zones of motor cars and things like that. Again, on the picture, I've circled a person just to show the scale of some of the projects that you could get involved with if you're involved in a degree in this department. If you're interested in industrial automation, again, we've got the Robotics and Agents Research Lab that's involved in robotics development, and you can see some of the industrial robotics that you could get involved in if you want to. And on the right-hand side, also again, just for interest's sake, we were involved in a project where this is a robotic walker, which would walk in the surf zone. You can see the sea behind it where the waves are breaking, to be able to vacuum up the sand that's there, to be able to find alluvial diamonds on the coast between South Africa and Namibia. So that was a very exciting project we were involved with a few years ago. And again, we've got people like Arnold Pretorius, James Hepworth, and Leanne Raw, who are really involved in the robotics side and the electronics side of our department, who are well versed in this area and would give you a quality education when you come here. I'm going to flick now just to a few slides of some of the spaces. I've given you a sense of some of the areas we're involved in, very few because of the limited time. I can go into those in much greater detail later. Just some of the areas. I also want to give you a sense of some of the spaces that you'll be working in. So this is our one of our labs, one of our computer labs that's dedicated just to our department. You can see there are 130 odd machines. If you look carefully, you'll find that there's screens all around the room. So when we use this as a teaching venue, everybody can see. It's a really nice venue. You'll see the hexagonal tables at the back where students can bring their own devices if they want to and plug them up and work at their leisure. It's a really nice space, this. We also have a whole bunch of research equipment spread across the department. What you're seeing here is a tensile testing machine in the Center for Materials Engineering, and there are many such pieces of equipment, research equipment, right across our department. This is a photo, and I must excuse the cheesy pose. This is a photo taken inside our mechanical and mechatronics lab. If you look carefully, you'll see on the different towers there, you'll find signal generators and oscilloscopes, power supplies, and all sorts of other things. On the table, there's a little microprocessor that's being controlled. So there's dedicated space for the MMT students to work. There's a urban search and rescue robot that's been developed by the ROL group. This is our part of our workshop, mechanical workshop, and in fact, this gives me the opportunity to mention, in fact, that we're about to kick off on a 13 million rand redevelopment of some of the space in our department, which means that this workshop is moving to a new space. It's going to be enlarged. There's going to be some more research areas that are going to be opened up, some experiential labs that are coming, the computational fluid dynamics labs. So we really are going through an exciting area of growth at the moment, where the whole footprint of the department is expanding, as well as consolidating around particular activities. If you're interested in aerodynamics, this is in the Duncan Macmillan lab. This is a recirculating wind tunnel where you can do some aerodynamic testing. And this brings me back now to one of the earlier points I made about, why come to our department if you want to do aeronautical engineering or biomedical engineering or industrial robotics, for example. Why not go and study that as a degree? Well, the answer I've got for you is, if you're wanting to be a surgeon, as an example, now you don't actually study to be a surgeon, do you? Really what you do is you study to be a GP or a general practitioner, and then you go on as a postgraduate qualification. You go on and you study then further to be a surgeon. And we've got a very similar view here, that if you say want to be an automotive engineer, as an example, you don't go and necessarily study to be an automotive engineer. What you'd rather do is have a good, solid undergraduate education in engineering. Of course, we would like you to be mechanical engineering or mechanical and mechatronics. We think they're the most appropriate, but you could do something else. And then you go and you say, okay, where in the world can I go and get the best experience to be a surgeon or to be working in aeronautics or in, say, aerodynamics or whatever it might be. So that gives you a nice path from undergraduate through into your postgraduate qualification that then gives you those real expertise that you can use to take forward into your future, into your job career. The slide I've got here is one of the last slides that I've got. I'm very conscious of the time, and I want to leave enough time for us to be able to sort of talk through some of the questions that you might have. This is a slide that outlines the Department of Mechanical Engineering's two programs on the right-hand side, sorry, on the left-hand side, and the Department of Electrical Engineering's offerings on the right-hand side. And what you've got there is you've got a little description of all three of them, the notable content, the content proportions, and the typical careers, as well as a statement of who it's best for. And so I'm just going to take a few moments just to talk through this. I know it's quite small on the screen. If you come to our website, you'll also be able to see some of this. But I think it is quite useful to get a sense of how the different bits play out. So I'm just going to start with the best for statements at the bottom. If you're doing mechanical engineering, it's best for people with a strong interest in mechanical and thermofluid design, materials, and mechanisms. Okay, so as a sort of a general basket. If you look at the MMT program, as we call it, it's best for people in interest in mechanical design, electronics, and programming and control. Okay, that programming and control is an important aspect. And then if you look at the mechatronic engineering, it's best for people with a strong interest in electronics, programming, and control of systems who would like an understanding of mechanisms. Okay, and that's played out if you look at the content proportions, and look particularly between the MMT program and the mechatronic engineering program, where science is the same and the management and complementary studies are the same, but the mechanics and the electrical computers, they are quite different. So for the MMT program in mechanical engineering, mechanics or subjects related to mechanics are around 50% of the content that you're going to do, whereas mechanics for the mechatronics engineering is only around 10% of what you do, if you think of the number of credits that you're going to do. If you look at the MMT program in Mech-Eng, the electrical and computers is about 25% or a quarter of the material that you're going to be dealing with. And if you look at the mechatronic engineering, it's up to 65%. So just by looking at the proportions of the credits that you're going to be doing, as well as having a look at how we describe who it's best for, you can immediately get a sense of the variation between the two based on the content. And then if you look at the typical careers as that are described there, you'll then be able to get a sense of some of the careers that are determined by the choice that you make as the career that you follow. Okay, so my closing slide is going to be one which I hope sort of draws together what I've been trying to tell you, and that is, it doesn't matter where you go in the country to do engineering, they're all accredited by the Engineering Council of South Africa. So we have to offer you something special that makes you come to UCT, come to the Department of Mechanical Engineering specifically. And it's a roller coaster ride, I know, but I hope what I've tried to demonstrate to you that it's about who we are and how we will engage with you and the learning space that we will give you. The fact that we've got strong research capabilities in particular areas that we bring into the classroom that helps in this education. We've got academics who are very passionate about engineering education, that's their research interest, and they bring that with them into the curriculum development, into what it means to educate you, to enable you to be able to make your way in the world and be accomplished professional engineers by the time you graduate and spend some time with doing your training in industry. So with that, I'd like to thank you very much for your attention. We're now going to kick over to some questions and answers. Hopefully some of you have already put some questions into the chat. If not, please do so. Carmelita will put those through into the main feed, and then she will bring some of those to my attention to be able to answer. So Carmelita, over to you. Is there anything in the chat so far?
Yes. So the first question is, what are the mainstream jobs available for mechanical engineers?
Now that's a really good question. Now, and it's a tricky question because mechanical engineering as a discipline, and here I'm talking about the Department of Mechanical Engineering, which has those two programs inside it. It's very broad. Now, if you talk about electrical engineering, you've got a thought of what it is. Chemical, maybe civil, you know what they do. Mechanical engineering is really broad, which means the job possibilities and the job prospects are also very wide. It goes all the way from the one side from sort of an industrial space or a manufacturing environment in factories, all the way through to air conditioning and refrigeration on the other side of the spectrum entirely, across again to vehicle design and development, all the way through on the other side to nano manufacturing or robotics associated with the space rockets. It really is very, very broad. And I know that's a little bit of a cop-out saying that like we're the best of everything. But the thing about the department itself, or the discipline, is that it allows you to be able to specialize in so many different areas. There are major areas like, for example, mining or manufacturing or power supply or refrigeration and air conditioning, and a variety of other ones. But that's to focus on those as being exclusive actually limits the fact that or doesn't allow me to be able to say that actually it's so broad and your fingers can go into so many different pies. Right, Carmelita, what's next?
Yes, the next two questions is possibly for Dagmar. So the one is a student that's been accepted into Mechatronics and is thinking of switching. How can he do this? And the other question is will there still be spaces available for international students who haven't received an offer to admission yet?
Okay, so let me start by answering this, and then I'll deflect to Rahma the hard questions. One thing that is of critical importance is that when you start in a program, it's really hard for somebody who's just leaving school to have a really firm idea about what it is they want to do and what they want to study. So the way we've developed the mechanical and the MMT program is, in fact, that the first 3 years, 2.5 years, are the same, identical. So in other words, it's only in the latter years that you start specializing and take specialist courses in particular areas, which means you can enter our department and you can take some time to settle in and get to learn about yourself and understand what your passions are. And once you know what your passion is, you can then move into either the MMT stream, which has the electronics and robotics, or you can move into the more pure mechanical engineering stream as well. Rahma, can you answer the question about international students and places?
So there aren't any limitations on the international student offers, but it is important that they receive a conditional offer before our deadline, because it does impact visa requirements. And if we're intending to come back physically to campus next year, we need all applicants to have visas sorted out. So they are welcome to send the EB faculty an email if they have any specific questions, and we can address it individually.
Great, thank you for that. And just to shout out to Rahma Jakut, who is our hero in the faculty office that looks after our departments, and we're very grateful for the contribution that she makes. What's the next question, Carmelita?
The next one, I'll add 2 questions together because it seems to have the same trend. Are jobs as mechanical engineers still relevant in South Africa? And then, is the mechanic engineering job market saturated in terms of having way more graduate than other engineering degrees?
Those are insightful questions. I'm not sure that I agree necessarily with the fact that there are far more graduates in mechanical engineering than other qualifications. And are there still jobs available for engineers in general? Absolutely. For mechanical engineering, from the Department of Mechanical Engineering, definitely. The reality is that anything that makes anything, anything that moves, anything that does anything in industry has at its core the people from the Department of Mechanical Engineering that ensure that that actually happens. So there's always space and scope for mechanical engineering graduates and mechanical and mechatronics engineering graduates to find their place in the economy, because it's the lifeblood of what it means for the economy to function in the mechanical space. If you look at the job adverts out there, well, sure, at the moment the economy itself is struggling significantly, but that's across the board. But if you look at the jobs that are out there, engineers are seen as scarce skills. If you look at all the governmental listings or lists of scarce skills, you'll see engineers, mechanical engineers, etc., are right near the top of the scarce skills list. There's no doubt that there are jobs out there.
Okay. Rahman, these are probably for you. What is the last date to expect any kind of offer, and what are the minimum requirements for mechanical engineering?
So the minimum requirements, it's dependent on the kind of schooling that you're doing, but all of the requirements are in the published prospectus. And just to note also to anyone that's still listening is that the national benchmark tests are not a requirement for the 2021 admission cycle. And then there was a question about the last date for an offer. Again, it's dependent on your schooling. If you're a current matric student doing South African schooling, we do need to wait for your final results. If you have finished your schooling, we can review your application, but it's on a case-by-case basis. So again, if you have any specific queries, you can just email me or email the EBE faculty office, and we will address them case by case.
Thanks, Rahma. Just to follow up on the statement about what you need to get in, we place significant focus on competence and ability in mathematics and competence and ability in physics or in physical science, particularly because physics and mathematics are they are the foundations for what it means to do engineering. And so those are the basic sciences and the basic mathematics, because all the engineering sciences get built on top of that. So we do have quite high entry requirements for that, because we demand a real competence in that area to be able to build on top of that. We need a solid foundation to be able to build upon. Carmelita, what's next?
Next is, how forgiving is the course to those who take a bit of time to understand concepts?
Yeah, so it's tough. There's no doubt that a university environment, whether it's UCT or anywhere else, the university environment is there's a lot of work to be done, and it can be quite challenging, particularly if your foundations are a little bit shaky and you're working hard to develop those foundations at the same time as other things are happening. So we fortunately do recognize that there's some people do have shakier foundations than others, even though they might have done well at school. They just need a little bit more time to develop those foundations. And in fact, we've got a 4-year version of our program and a 5-year version of our program. The end point of both of those programs is exactly the same degree with exactly the same competencies, etc. There's no way an employer can know the difference between somebody who's taken 4 years or 5 years. And so the 5-year version of the program is specifically designed to give people who need a little bit more time, a little bit more space. So you unload the timetable a little bit, so you have more time to focus on individual activities. Just gives you that little bit more time to be able to develop competencies in different areas.
Okay, the next two I'll also take in together. So the one is, how should I go about finding out how much of a UNISA engineering diploma would contribute or help towards an engineering bachelor's? And then the other one is, how is the Bachelor of Mechanical Engineering degree of UCT viewed by international countries?
So that's two nice questions. I hope I remember the second. I'll start with the first one. So the process of being a transferring student, or was transferring in or applying from scratch to come to UCT, even though you've got another qualification, when you arrive, you can go through the process of speaking to us, and we will look very closely at what you've done previously and look to see whether there's equivalences with the courses that we offer. The difficulty sometimes we have is that say, for example, if you've got an engineering qualification from a University of Technology or something, that we need to make sure that they are actually equivalent, that they cover the same stuff. If you're wanting to do a little bit of investigation beforehand, you can just write to us, and we will engage with you, and we'll look at what you've got, and we'll give you some feedback and information about how the two relate to each other, just to give you a sense of what's possible. And then the really nice question about the international standing of our qualifications. Well, the Engineering Council of South Africa has a process of accreditation. So every 5 years, each engineering program in the country is accredited. And for the Bachelor of Engineering qualifications like ours, we're a signatory to the Washington Accord. And so I can say categorically that the Bachelor of Engineering qualification that you get at UCT is seen in exactly the same light as the Bachelor of Engineering qualification that you'll see be granted in all the signatory countries, which include things like New Zealand, Malaysia, the States, England, some parts of China, Hong Kong. If you go to the International Engineering Alliance website, you'll see, in fact, the list of signatories is, I think it's up to 25 now countries, where the South African qualification is seen as identical and in equivalence to the others. And I've been on International Engineering Alliance accreditation visits myself. I've been to Russia to see that I've been to Russia and to Australia to confirm that their qualifications are up to scratch. And I can attest to the fact that the South African qualifications and the international qualifications are on a par without any doubt. We've got 1 minute left, so Carmelita, I don't know if we've got time for one quick little question left.
Let me just see, the others I'll be able to answer separately, but I think one important one is, how do you move from the 4-year degree to the 5-year degree once the 4-year degree has started?
Okay, so we recognize that people don't necessarily know where they want to be when they start. And sometimes they need a little bit of time to see within themselves about how they're coping and what their choices need to be. So typically after the first 6 months, we can do it beforehand, but typically after 6 months, we quite have a careful conversation with you about what would be best for you. And so you've got the first 6 months to think through what your options are. After that, you lock into one or the other one, because then the programs do separate slightly to give you more time in the 5-year program, and it's difficult to go back the other way again. Right, are there any final questions? I think we're just coming up to the end of time, and which just leaves me to thank you so much for joining us today. It really has been a privilege speaking to you. I'm sorry I can't actually see all of you, but it's really been great having the opportunity to talk about our department, talk about what we do, and really hopefully let you understand what it is and why we are so passionate about what we do here. So thanks for your time, and hopefully see you at UCT next year.